Hello, welcome back to InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw.
And I'm Mary Louise Van Atta.
There's a shocking statistic for you. The leading cause of death in America for people 65 and under is trauma. And in that group, uncontrolled bleeding, hemorrhaging, is the leading cause of death for those 45 and under.
Wow.
Well, this has to be addressed, and that's all what we're here to talk about today with Mark Dodge. He's going to talk about a program, national campaign called Stop the Bleeding.
Good afternoon, ladies.
Thank you for joining us, and we also have some equipment and some demonstrations. We're going to teach you how to save a life. How about that?
Well, the Stop the Bleed campaign is actually now nationwide and worldwide, but here in the United States we're dealing with a statistic of about 30,000 people.
Wow.
And our mission right now is to go out and teach as many people as possible about how to use the equipment that is available, and then also to make the equipment even more available, just in the same way that the AED program for CPR,
right,
for people with cardiac arrest, we want to have equipment like this accessible in every hallway and in every business and every school.
Before we get into that, tell us quickly, you are with the Marion County Medical
Reserve Corps.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
So
I understand you've been out with giving away, distributing water during the water
were involved
advisory,
most
right?
recently in the water emergency. So the Medical Reserve Corps is part of the Citizen Corps, and there are 5 branches of that. Most people in Salem are familiar with the Community Emergency Response Teams, the
yes.
CERT program, and then the Medical Reserve Corps, and then the Fire Corps, and then a lot of people also should remember the Neighborhood Watch, and also volunteer and police services are the other 2 branches of Citizen Corps. So we're very active nationwide. We're over 200,000 people in all of those groups. But the Medical Reserve Corps is involved in both public health and disaster response capabilities.
Stop the bleed.
Mm-hmm.
Stop the bleeding. That's such a powerful idea. How did it get started, this whole thing? There's a nonprofit called Stop Bleeding?
Well, through bleedingcontrol.org, which is a website, people can certainly learn more. But the program itself is actually a concept that was started following the tragedy at Sandy Hook back in 2012. And during that time, the realization of being able to save as many people as possible with even very basic functions of how to pack a wound and, if necessary, apply direct pressure and then apply a tourniquet, because tourniquets have been proven for now more than obviously 15 years in modern and through modern combat, both in the Near East, especially in those theaters of Iraq and Afghanistan as well. So we're now bringing this to the public in the same way. Unfortunately, a combination of industrial accidents. There's any number of situations, and especially here in the Willamette Valley, major farming area. So it's the number of causes for trauma are fairly wide. Our intent is to be able to minimize that when an accident does occur, and we have the technique and the tools to help reduce those numbers greatly.
And as soon as like a family member or a citizen or someone can get involved and stop the bleed, the greater chance for survival, I'm sure. And the more time you buy before emergency services can come. And
yeah, there's got to be a statistic about that. What is it? How can that really help?
Well, I guess let's look at the most basic number with regards to in a time situation. Someone could, if you think that you have less than 5 minutes, a person could, an unattended person could technically bleed to death in less than 5 minutes. If you think of it this way, there are about 10 pints of blood in an adult. And if you lose even 3 of those pints, you'll go unconscious. And unfortunately, then the time from there forward, as far as for brain damage and things too, become irreversible. So there's different levels of shock involved, and obviously the faster that you can apply some type of way to stem that blood flow makes all the difference.
sure.
Well, would you be willing to show our viewers, and please join us? We'd like to have a demonstration on how this all works.
We want to do that, and we also want to invite everybody to register and take the classes as well. Classes are only about 90 minutes in length, and the Medical Reserve Corps is working with about 12 different cities around Marion County, and you can see those on your list here. But basically we have established a circuit where we can go around from town to town, and in about 90 minutes people can learn the different skills on how to apply both the direct pressure technique and also tourniquets to help stop bleeding.
So you can either attend a class that's already happening, or I imagine if you have a good audience, you would probably arrange a class for them. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We're taking requests all the time, and in addition to that circuit that we were talking about.
Super.
Well, let's get on down to it. Let's learn how to save a life. Can you show us?
Okay.
So, what are we looking at here?
Well, Mary Louise,
I see a leg.
That is a leg.
It's the best impression of a torso piece that we can help out with right now. So, as a simulation, when we do the training, basically this represents a leg or an arm, basically for simple representation, just like a mannequin would for CPR training.
Right.
And so during the training, we introduce people to what's called the CAT tourniquet, and CAT comes from Combat Application Tourniquet. Okay. And the idea behind that is as a windlass, once we set this into position, by cranking that down with a certain number of turns, it will actually create pressure against the artery that's bleeding, and then stop that down. And if by chance one doesn't work, a second one can be placed above. So you'll always be considering what placement is, because it obviously won't work near a shoulder junction or near the thigh junction. There's a femoral artery and a brachial artery, but these won't work in those positions. So direct pressure is still always the very best technique to apply. And during the class, we also teach people about adding bandaging into the wound in order to help do that, because you can apply a significant amount of pressure, but then if necessary, then the tourniquets can come into play. This one's called a CAT tourniquet. This one here is a flexible one called the SWAT-T, which stands simply for stretch, wrap, and tuck.
Okay.
This is a very simple one to operate. And then this one here, this one comes from the SAM Medical Group up in Wilsonville, and this one actually has a ratcheting system, and actually it makes a clicking sound when it reaches maximum pressure, and uses the same type of windlass to be able to press as much pressure onto the artery. So these are the simple types of the tourniquets that are out there. And in our classes, we do this about 6 to 12 times in order to help people get as comfortable as possible in our classes, which run about 90 minutes long.
Can you put one of those on there so
Sure.
we can see?
I noticed that it doesn't come with a supply of blood. That is it is not bleeding.
There is a company that's come out with a clear solution that feels just like blood, but it doesn't stain either.
Oh.
So when you're helping someone, you'll either find this, you set it into position. We teach people to keep one, and when we find them in cabinets, they'll usually be in a wrapper. So you'll have to break the plastic seal, set that around the arm or the leg, pull down as tight as possible, anchor that, and then with the windlass, begin to turn and apply as much pressure as possible, and it will seat itself in here. Bring the tab over the top, get a Sharpie that's going to be part of the kit, and be sure to write down what time you put that tourniquet on.
Very important.
Tourniquets can actually be in place for more than 2 hours, and they've been on for certainly much longer than that, with more than 14 years of history in the field. Obviously, our armed forces are using these. The law enforcement officers carry these. Sometimes they carry 2. And you'll always, again, look for the red tab. This part's usually sticking out of the little holster that it might be carried in. So again, in record time, you're almost at rodeo level, about 8 seconds when you're really, really trained in this. 45 seconds when we finish people at the training class is about normal, but if they're really good and we have competition, about 8 seconds.
Wow.
Wow.
And that's going to save a life for sure.
Absolutely, because again, with enough pressure on there, by the time you've made that, the first part was remembering to call for the help, Number 2 was look for where's the bleeding coming from. Again, applying either direct pressure or a combination of other things that you might have used, and that impressing upon, if you didn't have the bandages that were part of anybody's first aid kit, you might be able to take off a t-shirt, find a bar towel, something like that, place that in, and we teach people the proper techniques on how to insert that and hold that for as long as, say, 3 minutes. And if you have the opportunity, then go ahead and apply a tourniquet. That's what's going to make the difference. And by that time, the rest of the paramedic crew is going to show up.
Wonderful.
Tell me more about this particular piece of equipment there. That looks more, speaking of taking your shirt and applying things, that
so,
looks...
just I'll let you, to show this off, this is what's called the, again, SWAT T. And if you take notice there, we'll do pictures later, there are actually color references on here. There's geometric reference. And as you stretch that out, it'll actually create tension. And so the diamonds in here make the difference. Wow. And again, so as you put this in position, this particular style can either be used to hold down bandages, or can also become the tourniquet itself.
And I imagine these might be more accessible to, around her.
Oh, very
for
easy,
regular
because it's very
folks
easy to carry.
You could carry this with you. I mean, I can imagine if you were, let's say, confronted with a situation where you needed to have something handy, this would really work, wouldn't
Absolutely,
it?
and
you don't have to go searching in a cupboard for something.
No,
you can carry that with you.
It's smaller than a cell phone.
How does it work?
Wow.
So in the same way that I applied this, so if I were starting the wrap process to come around, and I would also teach people how to try to support a limb. So if I'm here, I can actually lay their limb on my leg in order to get the support, so that I can unroll and bring this around, pull tight, and then be able to tuck under, and I'm done.
Wow.
Wow.
So this provides an immense amount of pressure against a leg or an arm.
So with a little training, a regular citizen could probably do this.
Very much so. And again, it's also very helpful even around canines too. So if there happens to be a canine injury, whether you're on the new trails over at Minto Island or wherever, again, just the simple idea of being able to take care of our canine companions too.
Sure.
It really works. The Stop the Bleed campaign really works, doesn't it?
Are you ready to learn too?
Yep. Yes, actually we are.
All right.
Well, I bet you some people are grateful that they did learn. You have a story?
There was recently in one of our classes. It was a lot of fun actually. We had a mother and daughter who had actually just learned about the course that very same day, and so it was a walk-in situation. And what made it, I think, a little bit more interesting was for both mom and daughter, there was the daughter translated for the mother while we were doing the class. So we do offer the classes available in Spanish at this time, but it was interesting in that situation to watch as both the mom and daughter were both on the ground at the same time and basically packing the bandaging into the simulated wound, and she was quite happy. It was fun to watch the pride and the sensation knowing that she had accomplished all that, and that she felt confident to go, because in their situation they actually did, as a farming family, there was a deep laceration that they spoke about, and they didn't have any equipment at that time, so they unfortunately even lacked an adequate first aid kit, and they had to improvise. But certainly now with this particular knowledge, she knew about how to go find equipment to help be able to expand upon, basically adding it to her husband's lunchbox kind of deal.
Oh, very good. Great idea.
So that he'll have the capability in his work.
That's another reason why this is endorsed by some pretty outstanding medical organizations. Tell us about that.
Well, it actually was created. It was instituted through the American College of Surgeons, and here in Oregon, the Oregon chapter of the American College of Surgeons obviously is a very strong advocate for that. And here in Oregon, we now have over 225 instructors, and we have been in the time since we started this last year here in Oregon, more than than 1,500 people have gone through the classes.
Wow.
So we are growing, and we're...
What's your goal?
Actually, thank you for asking. We have a very strong goal of 50,000 Oregonians, and through the benefit of the Oregon Health Authority, we now have 7 training kits that are available statewide, and we're certainly, through donation, we're working to build even more training kits, even for ourselves, so that we can even do more here in Marion County, and then continue to reach out further across the state.
That's great. Well, I'm sold. I've been through parts of the training, so I know how valuable it can be.
You?
I have. And but I do want you to tell everyone again, where can they go to either learn about how to acquire equipment, how to get the training, and how to be an advocate for the program?
Well, thank you. So actually, if they were to look at the website itself of bleedingcontrol.org, and then enter a zip code, it's as simple as that, to be able to find an upcoming class. And then also through the Friends of Marion County website, they can also go directly to us here. And then we'll be welcome to come out and join anyone who wants to do this. And again, it's about 90 minutes in length, and you'll have the confidence.
And you can save a life.
And the equipment, and save not just one, but we think we can save more than 30,000.
All right. That's great. What a wonderful program.
Mart, I'm so glad that you came in, demonstrated for us how to save a life using the equipment, and the confidence it could give somebody if they're in a situation like that, that they would have the expertise.
And the younger you teach them, the more years they have to implement the
Absolutely.
skill. So I hope you'll come back and join us again.
Would you?
Thank you very much. I look forward to doing that.
Super.
And thank you for joining us today on InSight. I'm Wendy Brokaw.
And I'm Mary Louise Van Natta, and we'll see you next time.